Welcome to Greenhouse Grower to Grower, the podcast where we talk to growers from across the greenhouse industry about market trends, innovation, their biggest challenges and opportunities, and more. I'm Brian Sparks, editor of Greenhouse Grower. During Cultivate 25, Chris Cimaglio and Ken Lane of PivotPoint Business Solutions shared results from the second annual State of Succession and Exit Planning in the Horticulture Industry Survey. In this episode, I talked to Chris about key findings from the survey, why it also includes industry pulse questions covering everything from tariffs to labor, and actionable responses that business owners can take from the survey results. Here's our conversation. Chris, it's good to have you back on the Greenhouse Grower to Grower podcast. I think you're one of the few returning guests that we've had, which is great because I figure this was a great time to catch up with you.
Well, thank you. Again, Brian, it's an honor to be on here with you, and it's an honor for the best PivotPoint team, to be able to speak to the industry, an industry we're passionate about a topic that we're passionate about, and it's just great to be here with you today.
Good, awesome. And that topic, this is the second annual state of the industry survey in terms of exit planning and succession planning for this industry, which it's one of those key topics that every company has to address no matter what. You can be stagnant in the varieties you're launching or technology that you're doing, but if you don't address who's going to be the next person or group or people who runs your company, you don't have a future there. So I want to get into, this year's second annual survey. Let's start off with just some of the basic details. Why did you want to do this survey for a second year? And, maybe what were some of your key goals this year and responses you were looking for?
Well, and thank you. Yes, as they say, Brian, one's an anomaly, two's a trend. And we had our benchmark data that we acquired this past year. And look, there's a lot of surveys out there that look at U.S. businesses in total on this topic, succession and exit planning. But, our industry is different. And while we're facing a lot of the same challenges that a lot of businesses do out there, our industry is special. It's different. We have different impacts on things. And we wanted to make this second iteration of the survey a little more targeted, a little more relevant, and really get the value out of those responses. We're more than just plants and flowers. And this is why we wanted to take an exclusive look at the horticulture industry.
Sure. Now, I know this year you guys did expand who you were reaching out to the survey as well to include, some outdoor fruit and vegetable growers as well. Because I know that, those businesses like those in floriculture, a lot of them tend to be family-run businesses that don't always have a clear plan of succession. So even while the crops they're growing might differ a little bit, their needs as a business are going to be very similar, I think.
Yeah, right on. And, what we have found with the horticultural industry in general is the proliferation of family businesses. And we did expand this past year to include flowers and ornamentals, vegetables, fruit growers, garden design companies, in addition to growers, grower retailers, allied manufacturers and suppliers and wholesalers. We did really try to focus this year on owners only. And we did. And that's across 33 states. So we got a very nice representative sample. We sent out 2,000 invites. Greenhouse Grower was great on getting the word out. Several, industry folks helped us in that as well, too, getting that message out. And, our key was to benchmark against financial, business, and personal readiness to last year.
Yeah.
Also include a lot of pulse questions in this year's survey as well, too.
Yeah, and that's something I really want to dig into, and that's something that really makes this survey relevant right now is, the benchmarking one year to the next is great, but getting a real firm grasp on how are the specific issues of today affecting a lot of the decision-making going on right now. So can you talk about why you included some of those pulse questions and really what some of those questions were?
Sure. It was important to us because, and definitely the industry, because there's only been a few changes since last year at this time, right?
Right.
In the political and economic landscape. And we really wanted to get a handle on how this is influencing their operations and their timing of their transition.
Yeah.
We noticed a little bit of a slowdown earlier this year, a lot of uncertainty. And, we pretty much asked the question, what's keeping you as an owner up at night?
Yeah.
And there was a lot that was keeping the owners up at night.
Yeah.
Now, this is, things have been changing rapidly.
Mhm.
So what was, a major concern in April is not so much a concern in August.
Sure.
But, one of the surprises that we took away from the survey is that 1 in 4 owners changed their exit timeline as a result of this.
Okay.
Many moved it up, but 12% delayed it by 5 or more years.
Really? Okay.
And baby boomers in particular were the ones that were most likely to push their exit further into the future. So that was a little bit of a surprise to us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's been a lot that has happened since then. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which could be beneficial. I mean, there's pros and cons in it, but it could be very beneficial to buyers and sellers.
Mhm.
And some of those things that we were worried about sunsetting are not going to sunset,
Right.
especially when it comes to estate planning. But, what we found from the Pulse questions was very interesting.
Sure.
Potential for recession was number one. 67% said that they were concerned what's keeping them at night is a potential for recession. Now, again, these were tabulated in April, May, June, so we could have them ready for a July release.
Right.
But second, obviously, tariff policies still remains a concern to a degree. And then the rising cost of insurance hitting, a lot of us. A lot of the natural disasters that we've been seeing and all that has bled over to even those that are not as impacted in those areas. So insurance is a major issue. And then immigration and H-2A, which were very big hot buttons earlier in the year,
Yeah.
have kind of come down, around 36% level. So we wanted to kind of get a pulse of what's going on out there. And that pulse, Brian, especially in today's environment, could change by the day, sometimes by the hour. So,
Yeah.
but it was important for us to help crystallize and find out what is going on here. And in the last couple of months, we've seen things change. We've seen owners, really start to dive back into their succession exit planning work. And, that was a nice takeaway as well, too.
Yeah, well, and I think because I was digging in through a lot of the survey results myself, that's probably the thing that stood out to me the most. Not that, recession talk or concerns and concerns about tariffs were an important part of the conversation, but they overshadowed labor. And, you go to any grower meeting, conference or whatever, with a few exceptions, labor is going to be the number one thing that people are talking about. And while it still is certainly a concern, the fact that it's being overshadowed right now by recession concerns and tariff concerns and even insurance concerns. I mean, that was a big surprise to me, and a lot of that goes to, I think, your point just about timing. Just for our purposes, we do our top 100 survey every year. That's done. It's usually completed by the end of March. So I don't think we even had a question about tariffs in there because at the time there was really nothing formal coming out of the administration and just some talks that we don't want to ask our audience to do too much speculating. But some of the late responses that we got to the survey started asking about that, literally asking why wasn't tariffs part of your survey? And I think if we did that survey again now, we might see the same thing that you guys did, where it's, that's becoming much more a part of the conversation.
Yeah, and and you bring up an interesting point too. Labor was a big part of our survey,
Mhm.
not so much on the responses, from the pulse side of things, but more the effects
Yeah.
of what these changes could bring. And the effect that the largest effect was 73% were concerned about an increase in product prices,
Mhm.
followed by labor, difficult to staff, and labor at 30. So
Yeah.
well, that big chasm there. But labor, your human capital, is a very important part of succession and exit planning in this equation. But,
Right.
again, it's timing, right? In April, what happened? He came out, the president came out with a big announcement on tariffs, and here we are.
Yeah. Well, and I wonder, to your point that you made earlier about some businesses delaying their own plan for exiting the industry and exiting their company. I wonder if that has something to do with the fact that they want to focus more on, you know, these recession concerns and tariff concerns are making it a challenge for me to make sure my business is ready financially for the next person to take over. So I need to address those immediate concerns before I look at my own, future plans.
Brian, you bring up a great point there because we were just looking at a survey today that 70% of working Americans have considered delaying their retirement.
Huh, wow.
Now, that's working Americans, but there's a big bunch of our owners, in that group there.
Yeah.
And that's a July survey. And, especially when you look at a business for an owner, that could represent 80 to 90% of their net worth
Yeah.
or their family's net worth. So people are planning to work longer because of a lot of these concerns that are out there. Now, of course, it's kind of left up to chance, right?
Right.
If you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans, right?
Exactly.
And so many leave the workforce earlier or have to leave their businesses earlier because of health issues, or any number of what we call the 5 Ds that could befall their business.
Sure.
50% of all exits are kind of left to chance.
Huh, wow.
Of our choosing, I should say.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a huge number.
I know that you guys just wrote a story for that, which those who are listening can find it on greenhousegrower.com, but that's really important. That you can plan for leaving, but sometimes you can't. And it sounds like, a growing number of those cases, you can't for a variety of reasons.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why it's important to plan. It's important to be prepared.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely want to spend some time focusing on the biggest insights and, more importantly, I think, recommendations from the survey. But before we get to that, I do want to ask, we talked about some surprising things. Were there any other results from this survey that really surprised you as you were kind of digging through the numbers and what they mean?
There were a lot of doubling and tripling of numbers in a positive direction.
Okay.
You see. But the numbers in general, especially when it comes to preparation,
Sure.
remain relatively low.
Hmm.
We mentioned the 1 in 4 owners, but that means 75% of owners have not changed their exit timeline. So that's a good thing. Owners personally prepared to exit more than doubled.
Hmm.
Okay, but that's going from 4% to 9%. So,
Right.
we feel the message is starting to get through, and that you need to be heading towards something rather than leaving something.
Right.
And this is one of the reasons we focus so much on personal readiness.
Yeah.
We're seeing owners bring management and family more into the exit conversation. That's more than doubled. And we know there's a risk there, no question. But
Sure.
we find that these conversations go a lot better if you're prepared for them and prepared
Yeah.
for questions. The greatest year-over-year improvement that we've seen is that business readiness to transition increased 67%.
Mhm.
So now instead of 3 out of 10 being ready to transition, 5 out of 10 are ready
Okay.
to transition. And key drivers of this would include a strong team, reliable systems, processes, a clear growth strategy, minimizing reliance on the owner. These are all ways we build value in the business. So
Mhm.
we're seeing more go down that preparation, that prepare route.
Yeah.
Measuring customer satisfaction was also a pleasant surprise. Most of us, rely on that verbal, "Hey, are you satisfied?" But no, we're seeing more use of written online surveys.
Yeah.
Technology, we're seeing, we have that question in there: is your technology, leading edge, acceptable, or non-existent?
Right.
And acceptable is down. That's good to see.
Yeah.
because a potential buyer doesn't want to buy acceptable. A potential buyer or successor wants leading edge.
Yeah.
And we have seen that go up. But probably one of the nicest surprises we've seen is owners taking a vacation.
Mhm.
We'd love to see this.
Yeah.
That rose from 15% to 28%.
Oh, that's good.
And never taking a vacation dipped 9. So, and this is so important, Brian,
Yeah.
it's for our own mental health. But this is showing, increased trust in team leadership, trust in your team when you go away. It's an important measure for us as succession and exit planners.
Yeah.
But taking time away can boost your creativity, help you make better decisions, give you the energy to build a decent plan.
Yeah.
And I can tell you as a business owner, vacations are essential. They're not optional. I mean,
Mhm.
because you're so into your business, especially after the spring season. Oh my gosh, take a break.
Yeah. Well, and even that break maybe has the potential to generate some ideas. It's not that anybody wants to be thinking all the time about their business, even when they're on vacation. But sometimes you get so into the day to day, you might be on a vacation and taking a morning jog, or you're just walking on the beach, and all of a sudden something pops into your head that might not if you were spending that time in the office going through, what do I got to get done today, and what do I got to get done this week. So I know that happens to me sometimes, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it happens to more of us than
Yeah.
sometimes we think. But those were the big surprises from the survey, as well as the pulse questions. The pulse
Yeah.
questions were a little bit of a surprise. Again, those are time bound.
Right.
But there's been a lot of positives since then. Recessionary fears are kind of easing a little bit.
Mhm.
We could be looking at an interest rate cut next month, which would be nice. So there are a lot of positive indicators in the market out there, but there's also still a lot of uncertainty.
Sure.
And even with the OBBBA, the one big beautiful bill, there's a lot of things that still need to be clarified.
Yeah.
So there's pros and cons in everything. But, we were pleasantly surprised. We're starting to see these numbers head in the right direction.
That's good. Well, and the one thing you were talking about before, Ned, we've talked about this in the past as well, is owners communicating and being transparent with their team about what their plans are. And it struck me recently, I was going through our own top 100 survey results, where we're always looking for extra story ideas that can generate from that. And I got to one of the questions we asked about what excites you the most about the future of this industry. A lot of folks who were filling it out, and they were owners who were filling out the survey, mentioned retirement. And I started, and first I was like, okay, that's good. But I got a little bit concerned when I was going through those, because, if you're coming to your company with the mindset of, I'm getting ready to leave, but you aren't communicating that with your team, I always wonder about the effect that has on your team if you're not getting them involved in the next step process. So they just see you planning to exit, but they don't know what the future of the company is. That's got to be disconcerting for them, I would think.
Oh, absolutely. And there's many of us that think, well, they're not thinking about this. I can assure you that they are.
Yeah.
Especially as the years go by and there's no plan put in place or communication happening. We have seen, some scenarios where there's been quite a loss of human capital
Mhm.
as a result of not properly communicating with your people. Look, there's a risk. No question about it. There's a risk when you start talking with your key management team about these things, or your family. But and that's a positive direction that we've seen, is seeing those conversations increase. But there's still only 14% of respondents
Yeah.
that have done that. And, that is something that we definitely need to work on.
Okay. I want to talk about some of the recommendations coming from the survey, because as you and I were talking prior to us, officially starting the call here, you can collect all the data you want. You can come up with a list of takeaways, and that's great. But making actionable recommendations based on that data is the most important part of a process like this. So can you kind of talk through some of the recommendations that you're making to the industry based on the numbers that you saw?
Yes. And there were 8 key recommendations that came from this report,
Okay.
all of them important. You know, 50% of all exits are not at the time of your choosing.
Mm-hmm.
50%. And it could be one of the 5 Ds: death, disability, divorce, a disagreement among partners,
Mm-hmm.
distress like a hurricane.
Yeah.
And sometimes we say there's a 6D, which is just dumb stuff that happens in business,
I like that. Yeah.
So, our team of CEPAs, have gone through this data. CEPA is a certified exit plan advisor
Okay.
and value builders. And we've gone through this data. And these aren't overwhelming someday goals, but these are practical recommendations and manageable actions that you can take today
Sure.
based on the data. First off, know what your business is worth.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've asked this following question at our educational sessions, and it's fascinating. It kind of gets people into thinking about this right away. Because one of 3 things is going to happen with you or with your business. You're either going to shut it down, you're going to sell it,
Mm-hmm.
or you're going to transition it to a family member and employee.
Yeah.
So I ask everybody in the audience, does everybody here know the value of their home? And for the most part, everybody kind of raises their hands.
Right.
And, you can find that online on Zillow, right?
Yeah.
And then I asked, does everybody know what their investments are at right now? Yeah, it could be 401k or, investments that you've made. And pretty much most of the room raises their hands because they can also find that stuff online.
Yeah.
And then I asked the question, how many of you know the market value of your company right now? And I might see one hand.
Yeah.
Crowd of 50. Now, we know you don't have much control over the value of your home. You really don't. It depends on your location and a lot of factors.
Yeah.
You may not have much, and you probably don't have much control over your investments. Again, it's market conditions, other factors outside our control.
Right.
But you do have full control over how valuable you make your company.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be your family's biggest wealth builder.
Yeah.
Much more than the home or the investments. So know what your business is worth, number 1.
Okay.
Number 2, separate yourself from your business. I know this is hard, but owner centricity in the horticultural industry is a real value killer.
Sure.
The business needs to operate as effectively in your absence as it does in your presence.
Okay.
It's funny. I have a client, and every time I mention the word owner centricity, and there has been a lot of owner dependency in that business, they joke and they take a drink.
Oh, jeez.
Every time I say the word owner centricity, they take a drink.
Yeah.
But it's had a material impact on them because what did they do? They brought in people. They brought in an HR manager to help with a lot of the day-to-day.
Mm-hmm.
They are slowly separating from their business, which has a commensurate effect on the value of the business.
Yeah.
The third recommendation we have, build your advisor bench.
Okay.
You need an accountant, a financial advisor, an attorney in your corner. And if you don't have either of those, now is the time.
Right.
We also recommend a certified exit plan advisor who can kind of get them all together, quarterback the process for you, and make sure your personal, financial, and business goals are being met. We're also seeing from the Exit Planning Institute the importance of having a value advisor, somebody who helps build value and grow value in your business. Because, we have that common question, when do you wish to exit? The answer we get is 3 to 5 years on average. I ask people 3 to 5 years down the line, and the answer is still 3 to 5 years in some cases.
Yeah.
But that's giving yourself time to build value in your business so you can exit at the right time and maximize the return on your business.
Okay. Before we go to the next point, I did want to ask about that. So, if you're a medium to large size operation, you might have the capabilities to have all those people in place. Any advice you have for a smaller business that, that might wonder, okay, how can I afford to be, having all of these different folks at this level working with me?
Yes. Bring them in when they're younger,
Mhm.
and having that mentorship in place and training them. You might be surprised by the team that you already do have and their ability to take on more responsibility
Okay.
in the business. There's a lot of ways to do this. We're working with a client right now, and he's realized, and the value of the business reflects this, that he's too intertwined in the business. So
Mhm.
he's bringing on a GM,
Okay.
and we see that a lot. Now, your typical owner, your typical horticultural grower, retail, what have you, probably is to a point in their career where they can do the work of 2 to 3 people.
Sure.
And we see that a lot. And some of these job descriptions that we see out there, holy cow. I mean, this you could split this into 3 or 4 jobs. Um, so it's important to you know, bring those people in and up through the organization, as well as have the conversations with them,
Sure.
about the future. But there, and we know it's tough. There's been a lot, and you just had an article in Greenhouse Grower about the multi-generational communication and transfer,
Sure.
and how exactly does a baby boomer talk with a Gen Zer? Those type of discussions.
Yeah.
It's tough, but we have seen, especially with husband and wife teams, for example, where they are able to bring in additional people, a little younger, a little more affordable, a little more eager to learn,
Okay.
and also have that runway set for them. I mean, you're kind of career pathing for them this role.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways to do that, but it first has to start with the owner themselves being comfortable enough to start separating themselves from the business.
Sure.
I have a client that now works 3 days a week. And when
Oh,
we
wow.
started, he was in there 80 hours a week. But now he works 3 days a week, and he has steadily brought on people and promoted other people where he saw that spark, that bright light there, and has made his key management team very integral to his exit.
Okay.
And the way he was able to prepare for that is that there is going to be, I mean, what's one of the first things your people are going to ask you if you say that, I'm looking to sell the business or have family succession or what have you? One of the first questions, and this is just human nature, what does this mean for me?
Yeah.
Well, it's good to have an answer for that question. It could be in the form of a retention bonus. It could be in the form of a phantom stock program or some kind of reward on a successful event, meaning the transition of the business, either
Yeah.
sale or succession. So there's a lot of ways to have those conversations, those tough conversations. But you want to be ready for the questions. The worst thing you could do is say, "Hey, I want to talk about my exit," and they're thinking, "Okay, well, what does this mean?" And you don't have any answers.
Right. Yeah.
So it's important to strategize and plan for those discussions so you do have those answers.
Sure.
And people can walk away a lot more confident. And instead of running to their desk to work on their resume, they can now, envision a future where they're going to be, more rewarded.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about some other recommendations that you have from the survey results then.
Yes. The fourth recommendation would be to understand your customers deeply. And what do we mean by that? Well, qualifiable, quantifiable data, not just your gut.
Mhm.
Find out what they want and stay in touch. Surveys, loyalty programs, newsletters, social media. Build that community, not only in your operation but online. And it has value. It has tremendous value, especially in what we call the Net Promoter Score.
Okay.
Now, in most surveys, there's that initial question, and that question is always, would you recommend our service or product to a friend or family member?
Yeah.
Well, if you get a 9 or 10 on that, it invariably leads to other questions, and that's how they kind of tabulate your Net Promoter Score. Is this customer going to be a promoter of our business or a detractor of our business?
Sure.
And it's a very important measure from a potential buyer of your business. Um, the next recommendation would be to clean up your financials. We can't say it enough.
Hmm.
Clear, Organized financial statements, that's the first impression of your business's health by a potential buyer. And it's also good to have clean financials in place for a successor.
Okay.
A strong record of pre-tax profits, EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, huge measure because it's a cash flow measure.
Yeah.
Cash flow, the cash your business generates is a very important measure. And there are many intangibles that also determine the value of your business. We've talked a lot about human capital, but there's customer capital, structural capital, your processes, your procedures, social capital, your company culture, and how you're perceived in the industry and in your community. This is all valuable preparation for due diligence, just having those financials cleaned up and in order.
Right.
Have a plan and back it up. This came through loud and clear. Whenever we ask the question, do you think, succession and exit planning is important? We get 98%. 98%.
Yeah.
How many of you are doing it right now? Oh, about 47%. So it's important. And this is also speaks to short-term business continuity planning.
Yeah.
God forbid anything should happen to you. But what if it does? What if you're part of that 50% that leaves it up to chance or doesn't have control over the timing of when it happens? Risk mitigation, insurance, protect your business. A well-crafted exit plan really ensures that you can act decisively when the time is right or necessary.
Right.
Talk to your successors. We've talked about that. Your business is a family asset, not the other way around.
Right.
Okay. And the most successful family succession clients and those families that we see operating out there understand that the business works for them and not the other way around. What is the family's mission, goals, and vision? And talk to your successors. It could be your management team. Open communications early with family and management really gets that alignment going.
Sure.
And really ensures a smoother transition when that time comes.
Okay.
And then prioritize your well-being. That's our last recommendation. As we said, half of all business exits are involuntary. So take a vacation, step away. You have our permission. Prepare for the next stage of your life. And make sure you're heading towards something. I get this. This is why we spend so much time on personal readiness is, what am I going to do? This business, it's my life. It's everything, well, what do you like to do? And maybe, okay, if you still want to have a role in the business in the future, that can also be planned as well.
Yeah.
You could do an earnout or if you're selling the business, or you could be a consultant and advisor to the business, during succession. But, what is important to you? Spending time with family, travel, pickleball,
Yeah.
charitable giving. What kind of gets you going? And for many, it is their business. My father, his passion, his love was his business. He was in there 7 days a week. 364 a year. Christmas was always special. But it doesn't mean he didn't have fun and that he didn't travel,
Right.
that he wasn't able to clear his head. And it's really important, especially for our mental health. I mean, things are getting more complex out there by the minute. We just need time to clear our heads.
Yeah. Well, and I think to your point earlier too about you mentioned the business owner that you work with who has gone from an 80-hour work week to 3 days a week. I would imagine that gradual transition is so much more effective than going, 50, 60 hours a week to all of a sudden I'm done without any sort of a process in between to help prepare you and prepare those who are going to be taking over, to get them ready as well.
Brian, you're absolutely right. I mean, the worst thing you could do is go cold turkey.
Yeah.
On Monday, you show up and say, I'm cutting my hours in half, and then everybody's kind of left scrambling. It's a gradual progression.
Sure.
And again, what is your plan, to do that? These are roles and responsibilities that are still going to need to be taken care of.
Mhm.
And who do you have on your team, or who can you bring onto your team to make that happen?
Yeah. So I know that you and your team first presented these results at Cultivate this past year, and I know it's going to be a long process of rolling out the information to the industry. What's been some of the early initial feedback that you've received from folks who have looked at the results so far?
It's thanks for the question there, Brian. It's been extremely positive.
Okay.
Point. The recommendations we've been making, a lot of owners are thinking,
Mhm.
and I think doing the survey 2 years in a row has really given a lot of the respondents a lot of insight, and which could be why we're seeing some positive movement. I mean,
Sure.
we did have several that took the survey last year and took it again this year.
Yeah.
Um, but we're still not there.
Right.
But we're talking with growers, grower retailers, allied manufacturers around the country, even in Canada.
Mhm.
And many, for the first time, are starting to have these discussions. And it's hard. It's emotional. Um, but we have found that those who get the education on this are in a much better position.
Yeah.
I think last year you had said, if you're going to cultivate, if you're going to any of these industry events, you got to go to the succession and exit planning events. And we're saying that,
Yeah.
not just because we like a full room, but it's really important to get that education. Your growers, your grower retailers, you know everything about getting that plant looking beautiful.
Mhm.
This is totally different than what you're used to. And many we find are, just thinking about it for the first time. Many we talk to, this is the first conversation they've had about it.
Yeah.
Before family, before, their management team or what have you, even before their accountant and lawyer.
Yeah.
So, there's great resources out there as well too. Greenhouse Grower, you've been phenomenal in your support of this. You caught this early.
Mhm.
Yeah, especially when we were starting to see these wind downs and closures and
Yeah.
kind of, you know, a shock to the system, so to speak. And yeah, many of those were because of land value and the ability of the land to earn more than the business, but many were not.
Yeah.
And, that just speaks to planning. And several don't want to go through it. Several don't want to do that. We realize that. But Greenhouse Grower, you have your running monthly column on this that we are, really excited to participate in.
Sure.
I'm going to have a full article on this coming out soon too.
Okay.
American Hort is a wonderful resource. The Exit Planning Institute is a wonderful resource. But take the time to educate yourself. And we're happy to have a discussion with you. We have a lot of resources, ebooks, our website, PivotPoint biz, solutions.com has a wealth of resources on this,
Okay.
as well as the best website, besthumancapital.com/exit. Also
Mhm.
has a lot of great resources on this too. But, we're about getting the word out and the education out there. Um, have these discussions.
Yeah.
Talk with your accountant, your financial planner, your lawyer about this. Several of them may not be familiar with a business transition.
Yeah.
We've seen several switch attorneys because, they concentrated on different aspects of law, even accountants, and accounting is kind of an issue right now because there's a lot of shortages out there.
Yeah.
A lot of retirements happening and not a lot of pipeline fill.
Sure. Sure.
So, it's important that you have the right players on your team as well too to get you over the goal line.
Yeah. Well, and you stole my thunder there too a couple minutes ago. Just gonna say, as you said, this is a message that everybody needs to hear because, as I've said before, if you go to a show like Cultivate, growers are going to fill up that room where they're talking about the latest technology or the latest varieties because everybody wants to see what's out there that's new. But if you don't address this conversation, none of those other conversations are going to matter because there's not going to be a future for your business if you don't start talking about this now.
That's right. And now that the baby boomers are starting to exit more, we're starting to see Gen Xers, even millennials consider this more. I was at a conference recently, and this young lady came up to me. She was 36 years old,
Mhm.
and she told me, "I'm 36 years old, and I bet you're going to tell me that I need to start working on this now." And I said, "You're absolutely right. You need to start working on this now." And she's like, "Well, I'm not going to probably exit for another 20, 25 years." No, but you could build value in your business.
Yeah.
So much of succession exit planning is just good business planning.
Mhm.
I mean, you want to grow your business, right? You want to increase the value of your business. Well, there's ways to do that. And there's 8 key things that buyers look for when buying a business. And we covered many of them already.
Yeah.
So,
So one last question for you as we wrap up then. I know you're just coming out with the results from this year's survey now. Looking ahead, does your team have an idea of, okay, what's going to be the next wave of this? Do you think this will be an every year survey? Are you thinking about changing some of the approach you're going to take in the coming years?
well, we're going to sit back for a year.
Okay.
It takes a lot to,
Yeah.
to do these surveys, and we are seeing some survey fatigue out there.
Yes.
But we know this one is unique and different, and it kind of sets us apart. We're going to have 2 years of benchmarking data
Mhm.
that we can look back again at in 2027.
Yeah.
Now, what we can do in the meantime is bring a lot of these survey results to life for people. And
Right.
excuse me. And by that, we could do what we call a peer review report,
Sure.
comparing your answers to where you're at compared to the survey data.
Yeah.
And we have the ability to do that. It's a new program that we're going to be offering. And I want everybody out there to know too that these results are available at complimentary at no charge. If you go to PivotPoint biz solutions.com, there's an orange button right on the homepage.
Right.
And it says view and download your complimentary digital copy of the 2025 State of Succession and Exit Planning in the Horticultural Industry Report. So it's right there.
Mhm.
You have plenty of links on Greenhouse Grower. We also feel free to email me. I'm happy to send you the survey. My email is Chris at pivotpointbiz solutions.com.
Sure.
Or you can call me. And I'm going to put my number out there because I'm happy to talk anytime. 847-514-9028. That number again, 847-514-9028. And let's talk. Let's just have a conversation. For us, it's just important for you to get started.
Yeah.
Whether you're 70, 60, 50, 40, what have you. And we're seeing a lot of younger folks at our educational sessions because, you don't want to be in a position where, well, I'm going to be leaving the business in 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
Well, in many cases, you need a good 3 to 5 years to plan. But that doesn't mean it can't move in a year. And we see that often. It typically takes 2 to 12 months to market and sell a business if it's at a good spot. But is it at a good spot? Do
Yeah.
you know what your business is worth? And we get a lot of clients at times saying, gosh, I didn't know it was worth that much. But we also get a lot more that say, I wish it was worth more. And that's where the value building and the planning come in to try to maximize that value in the business. Go on.
Well, and to your point too about being ready for the unexpected, that 30-something-year-old that you were talking to who had said, I'm not going to be necessarily making any decisions in the next 20 or 30 years. Well, something might happen that you're not expecting that would force you to make a decision like this.
And Brian, it's a very good point, and this is why we spend, in our engagements, we really focus on not just the valuation, but business continuity planning.
Mhm.
And they're like, well, why do you do this? And it used to be further along in the process. We do it early. And the reason we do it early is we had a client that we started working with who unfortunately died,
Mm.
was killed by a drunk driver.
Okay.
And it really reshaped our thinking on this because what about the time between point A and point B?
Yeah.
We don't know. We just don't know. And I have personal experience on this, family experience, where a loved one passed away, but she was prepared.
Mm-hmm.
And she had her ducks in a row. And probably more because I was saying business continuity planning,
Yeah.
and mitigating that risk in the business. Matter of fact, one of our stages, right when we identify the value of the business, okay, now let's protect that value in
Mhm.
business. Let's, get some protection around that. So for your future successors or for, the future of the business in general, whether you're selling to a third party or what have you, there is a plan in place for that time in between.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Chris, as always, it's great catching up with you on a topic like this, and excited to see what how the second year of this survey did, and as you know, we'll be in constant communication on topics just like this, and what some of these higher level decisions that the business owners need to make, and I want to thank you for taking some time today to talk through some of this.
Brian, thank you so much. You and Greenhouse Grower do so much for this industry, but you were really at the forefront of this. I mean, this came on your radar screen early, especially due to some of those wind downs and closures that we saw.
Yeah.
It's an honor on here to be speaking with you, and this industry, which we're so passionate about. And folks, I'm here to tell you, with a little bit of planning, a little bit of foresight, some preparation. Yeah, it's hard work, okay? But anything worthwhile is. And you'll be so much better prepared and have so much more peace of mind at the end of the day.
Thanks for joining us. You can learn more at greenhousegrower.com. Please subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen, and please leave us a rating as it helps other podcast listeners find the show.